It's always exciting to do a CRC update. I know it's been a strange year, so there's a lot to talk about. But I wanted to just give, because I never know who's here. Like sometimes there's some first timers and there's some folks that have been here, every year forever. So I have to kind of gauge the audience. So I'm going to give just a few slides of background on NC Live for the newbies who may not know. And then we'll talk about the impact of the pandemic on usage of e-resources. And then I'll talk a bit about some strategic planning that we've been doing at NC Live that's really just starting. So I'll kind of share where we are and then solicit ideas from you all. So let's get into it. All right, so here are the basics. So NC Live is a cooperative of libraries. We are hosted at NC State University. We've been working remotely for over a year. I've lost track, but we will go back to the office next month. We're all excited about that. NC Live's been around for 24 years, and we consist of 4 communities of interest. So those are the public libraries of North Carolina, the UNC system, the independent colleges and universities of North Carolina, and then also the community colleges. So I think at least 3 of those groups are represented today. And we are a public-private partnership. At the bottom of this slide is really one of the things that's unique about us. So if you've come to North Carolina from another state, you may be surprised to learn that we provide the same content, the same software, and the same services to everybody. As you go to different states, sometimes there are organizations like NC Live, but they might buy some things for the public libraries and other things for the 2-year schools, et cetera. This is really cool, I think, because it gives some consistency to really anybody in North Carolina that has a library card in their pocket. If they have a library card, they have access to NC Live, and that means the same thing to everybody. So whether they attend Duke University or they're a Farmville public library patron, that NC Live is NC Live. They have all the same stuff. So again, that's unique to us, and I think it's one of the positives about the approach that we've taken. Our mission is to help support you all as you support education, enhance economic development, and improve the quality of life of everybody in North Carolina. So as a lot of mission statements are, it's really broad, but you can see those sort of 3 buckets or 3 categories: education, economic development, and quality of life. So everything we do fits into at least one of those buckets. And this is always a good litmus test, as we consider what should NC Live be doing. We kind of run it through this filter, and if it doesn't fit at least one, usually at least 2 of these buckets, it's probably not something we should focus on. But to turn this around, when you think about NC Live, if you have ideas or even challenges, sometimes people come to us and it's not necessarily that they have a business plan, like, here, go do this. That never happens, right? That's not realistic. But sometimes people just say, our library is struggling with this, or our patrons are really wanting that, and we just, for whatever reason, we can't do it locally. So any of those challenges that you have, if they feel like they could fit within this mission, they're fair game. Tell us, tell me personally, or tell someone who serves on one of our committees. But let us know, because again, that's where the ideas come from. They come from folks saying, maybe I can't do this thing that I really want to do at my library locally, but if we had a group like NC Live get multiple folks together across the state, we would have the power to do that. So let us know. That's how we get all of our ideas. So I want to keep encouraging folks to speak up. And don't worry if you think it's a crazy idea. It's probably not. All right, so as advertised, I wanted to give you a quick run through of some impacts that we've seen during the last year plus with COVID. So these are really all focused on NC Live, our neck of the woods. But I think you'll see that some of these impacts will have implications for you locally, and also implications beyond the pandemic, right? So I know it's not over, but it feels like we're coming out of the worst of it. But there are certain things that have changed that will probably stay changed. They probably won't go back to normal. Okay, so some impacts kind of by theme. We saw a lot more requests for help. So we have a help desk. If any of you are struggling with something related to NC Live, we encourage you to call, to email, to use our chat service. Let us know, and we'll try our best to help you. So that's always been around, but we noticed a pretty significant spike in March of 2020 when a lot of libraries were, closing, folks were working remotely. And I'll talk a little bit about what drove some of those tickets, but that was something we noticed right away. We also noticed an increase in our usage. Every year we see an increase in usage of our e-resources, but it tends to be pretty modest. It's maybe no more than 5% per year. So, we saw an increase beyond that 5%, and I'll show you a graphic in just a second. So that's not really shocking. If you can't walk or drive to your physical library and look at physical materials, all that's left is e-resources. So that was not a shock. I think maybe the level of increase was a bit of a surprise. We noticed an increase in requests to implement a product that we provide, which is EasyProxy. It's something that we purchase on the behalf of libraries. And I think some libraries that were maybe on the fence as to whether they needed that, especially public libraries, once the physical building was shut, they were, not desperate. They were urgently seeking to set up hosted proxy. So we did that for them. So sometimes a crisis will, if you're on the fence, sometimes a crisis will push you over, and that was certainly a crisis. And then also we provide Summon, which is a discovery service similar to EasyProxy. We buy it on behalf of libraries, and then libraries can choose to turn it on or not. We noticed an increase in requests to implement Summon. Because again, you can't walk into your library and ask someone for help. Everything you're searching for is online. So those are some of the bigger impacts, and I'll dive into these just a bit. So help desk, the line to focus on here is the sort of lime green or Junebug. It's actually the color of the color, the green line on the graph. So that's 2020. And you could see that sort of crazy jump in March and April. And no surprise, folks were struggling with some e-resources, maybe some things that they wanted to implement, like I mentioned, EasyProxy and Summon. Now they were urgently wanting to implement those to serve patrons who were working remotely. So that didn't shock us, but you can see it kind of settled down, and by July it was in line with the last 3 years of data. So that's kind of where we are now. And then the red line, I think when I pulled this data back to March, it's really, there's a bit of a spike there in January, probably back to school or back to beginning of semester activity. But again, I think we're falling back in line with where we were. But not a shock. I'm sure a lot of you saw some really interesting either spikes or dips in usage in spring of 2020. Okay, so I mentioned hosted proxy. These numbers kind of look modest, but we've already really implemented this for so many libraries. I think 120 already use it. So there's not a lot left, not a lot of meat on the bone. But we did, again, notice in April in particular, we implemented 7 new EasyProxy instances. So again, for us, that's a lot, and sort of smattering since then. But anyway, that sort of requires labor on our side and labor on the library side. So 7 was actually a pretty busy month for everybody. Okay, and then I mentioned content. So again, in this chart, sorry, the colors have changed. I apologize. Purple is what you want to look at. So purple represents 2020. And again, if you sort of look at March, it's a pretty good increase over 2019. And then in April, you're seeing a significant increase. That is roughly 250,000 more full text views. So that's a chunk for us. Even at the scale of 2 million, that's a lot of an increase. And it kind of continued into May. Summer is summer. A lot of folks are obviously not enrolled, but still we were seeing, beyond what we normally see year over year. And that extended into September when folks are coming back and realizing I'm still not going to be on campus. I'm still going to be studying remotely. So a really huge jump in September as well. So there you go. Yeah, I don't know. I know these are stats from over 200 libraries, and it's like all of our resources. But I think in this case, kind of the macro view is helpful because you can see really across the state, across all institutions, what were some of the trends over the last year plus. All right. Oh, and I should have mentioned, any questions, feel free to just chat in, and I should have plenty of time to answer at the end. All right. And then I was thinking about this morning. You kind of look at that data and you're like, yeah, that was 2020. That was a crazy year. So that's one thing. But then also, what are some things that maybe are not going to go back to the way they were? So I was trying to think about that. And I thought of three things that I've heard from libraries. We've been doing a lot of outreach calls and Zooms like this with folks across the state since we can't see them in person. And our first question is, what's different? What's changed? What are some trends that you see coming out of the pandemic that are going to stick around? And the first one, and we heard this a lot, I think it's true for academics as well, but we heard a lot of public libraries say, a lot of our patrons who would never think about a streaming video or think about an ebook or an audiobook, they were kind of forced to use them. If they were going to do any of that stuff, they had to do it in a digital format. And so, once they got over the learning curve, now they're fans for the most part. They want to keep reading ebooks and they want to keep streaming videos online. So I think for all of us, we have to ask, how is this going to alter our collection development policies or priorities going forward? Should we allocate more money towards, streaming video services, for example, if this is going to be a lasting trend for our patrons? And I know a lot of libraries are thinking that through now. Also, we've heard some trepidation about from libraries about whether patrons will return to the library at the same level. Of course, people still love the library; they're still going to come in for studying or for pleasure reading in person or for programming. But will it be at the same level? I think that's what we're hearing. And I heard somebody say, I don't want the administrators to walk in and see that we have all these staff members at service desks and no patrons, because it looks bad. It kind of looks like, hey, you're overstaffed. When in reality, it's kind of like the iceberg theory. Like, all this work is happening online. Folks are doing online programming, online instruction, et cetera. So it may not be, if I don't see someone at a desk being served, that doesn't mean that work's not happening. It is happening, but it might be in a back office where someone's leading a webinar like this, which takes work. So folks are just thinking about that, and if it's true that the level of kind of walk-in patrons doesn't get back to the levels pre-pandemic, how does that impact staffing? Should we maybe hire different skill sets? More online curriculum development or online instruction? So these are questions I'm sure you're all thinking about, but I do hear those from folks, and I wanted to pass those along. And then the final category I'm hearing about is really, I would call it an opportunity. And, it's really about online programming. And so a lot of in-person instruction and programming went virtual, which it had to. But if that's going to be here to stay, how does that represent an opportunity for us to do things differently and maybe more efficiently? And I'll give you an example. So at NC Live, we would always do a mix of online instruction and in-person instruction. And during the last year, we basically just doubled down on online instruction because that was the only way to reach folks. So we thought about it and we said, well, we're not the only library consortium in the world or in the country doing instruction, right? So, and the things we're teaching on are really not incredibly unique to North Carolina. They're true for almost everybody. So we formed a group we call the Professional Development Alliance of other like-minded consortia. And basically it's an exchange program. So we might have someone from NC State teaching an online course or an online webinar about copyright compliance. And what we do is we basically invite our own libraries to attend, of course, but then we also open it up to libraries across the country from these other partner consortia. So maybe librarians in California can attend. And in exchange for that, they open up some of their courses to us. So you all can attend a session that's led by, some digital curation expert from Pennsylvania, for example. And it's kind of a cool exchange program. No money is exchanged. It's truly just, we'll give you access to ours if you give us access to yours. And we really get to expand dramatically the number of courses that we can offer you all. So that's what we're doing at a consortia level, but I think it's worth thinking about at an institution level. If you're going to be doing more online programming or online instruction, do you need to do it at every single campus and effectively duplicate a lot of effort? Or, could you form an alliance? Maybe it's through the CRC and just say, all right, NC State, you're going to share your course with the rest of us. And, Meredith, you're going to share your course. And altogether, you can kind of reduce your effort and increase the amount of sessions you can offer. So anyway, it's just something to think about. Obviously, you all would know if there are any gotchas there, but it does seem like online really gives us a unique opportunity to scale up and to share our resources. All right, so I'll take a breath. So now I'm just going to talk about where we are and where we're going, and really invite you all to share your ideas with us. So I'll just sort of set the baseline here by talking about our current services. And really, our current services fall into two categories. The first category of services are services that bridge barriers to information. So the first thing we offer is content, as you all know. So currently, our collection consists of about 1.6 billion things. These are full text articles, streaming videos, ebooks, test prep, etc. So 1.6 billion, it's huge, it's crazy. We had about 21 million full text views last year. And again, by working together across these four communities of interest, we can spend roughly $3.5 million on content, and in exchange, we get discounts that really would cost you all, if you all bought the exact same stuff, it would cost almost $48 million. So we get some really, really significant discounts by negotiating as a statewide entity. So that's the first thing we offer, which I think is probably pretty well known. And then I mentioned at the top, we also offer a way to access that content that sort of matches user expectations. Most folks now don't want to search screen, they're just not trained for it. They've been conditioned by Google to just type in a string of words, misspell all of them, and Google still knows what they want. It's kind of like, if you think about it, it's kind of magical how that works. For those of us that remember having to spell everything correctly to get any good results. But anyway, for whatever it's worth, that's the expectation our patrons have. So we find it important to offer you all some sort of discovery service that mimics or attempts to mimic that natural language search experience. So we offer Summon to everybody. It's something we subscribe to, so you don't have to pay for it. And basically, it sits on top of your catalog and also interacts with your knowledge base. So if you do implement Summon, it can pull together, of course, NC Live content, but then also your physical collection, and then also your other electronic collection that you purchase on your own. So it can basically bundle all that into one index. And if someone types in salamanders, for example, they're going to see results from all those sources, and then they can sort of navigate where they want to go. Currently, we've got 73 of our libraries using Summon across the state. And if you're not one of those 73, I feel like everyone here is, but just in case, let us know, and we're happy to walk you through the process. I mentioned Easy Proxy. So this became, it's always important, but it became critically important during COVID. Everybody was logging in from somewhere other than the library. And so, it was really critical to make that login process easy and to enable folks to be able to jump from resource to resource without being prompted to log in a second and a third and a fourth time. So now we're up to about 123 libraries using Easy Proxy. And again, if this is something you're interested in, just let us know and we'll set you up. Okay, and then a website service. So I don't think anyone in the CRC uses this, but a lot of our smaller libraries struggle with developing their own website, keeping it up to date, making sure that it's mobile friendly, that it meets standards, et cetera. So we put this together probably 3 or 4 years ago now. And there's just one implementation on the left, Surrey Community College. This is a screen cap from their website. But yeah, this is something that, again, it really has helped out smaller libraries that either don't have the bandwidth or just don't have, a web developer sitting around with nothing to do. So it's been really helpful for the 30-some libraries that use it. Again, I'm not sure this audience is needing it, but tell a friend. All right, and then another way that we're trying to get folks through the barriers to the information that we provide is through our search engine marketing program. So basically what we're doing here is we're using a program that Google offers called Google Ad Grants. And Google Ad Grants provides $10,000 a month in credit if you're a not-for-profit. So NC Live is a not-for-profit, as you know. And so basically we're using our allotted credit to create advertisements in Google. So you'll see one kind of on the right half of your screen. This one is for NC history research. And so basically what happens is if someone who's not thinking about a library is just Googling and they put in a few terms that are relevant to one of our resources, maybe ancestry or genealogy, North Carolina, we use those search terms, or I should say Google uses those search terms, plus their IP address. So if they're here in North Carolina, and basically that would trigger one of our advertisements to show up. At that point, if they click on it, they would then be directed to our site and they can log in. I don't think I have a screenshot for that. They can log in if they have a library card, and now they're actually in, Heritage Quest or whatever the resource might be. Or if they don't have a library card, we basically give them access for 10 days. And we tell them, okay, based on your zip code, this is your closest public library. Go on down there and get a card, and then you can keep access to NC Live. But either way, we're giving them instant access, and we're basically pulling them from Google and where they're just not even thinking about libraries, and now they're actually using a resource provided to them by a library. So we're converting some folks that maybe otherwise wouldn't go get a library card. And actually, we've been looking at the stats, and I think some folks thought this would just be public library patrons or people from the community. But we're finding a lot of folks actually are academic. They have a card, like they have a, Campbell University card in their pocket, but they just didn't realize that Campbell would have a resource like Heritage Quest, for example. So it's kind of interesting to see them assuming that their academic library wouldn't have something, and then Googling it and then finding, oh, they actually do have it, and I have a card that gets me this access every day. So that's been cool to see. But anyway, I can go on forever about that. All right, and then the other set of services we offer are really geared towards you all. So they're geared towards librarians and helping support your education, your continuing development. And this is probably the biggest jump I've ever seen in any service that I've been a part of. But our professional development offering jumped 926% last year. This is not shocking. I think it was really a couple factors. I mean, you had COVID, which certainly really made it impossible for folks to travel. So you couldn't go to maybe, ALA or other conferences. So really, if you wanted to develop, you had to do it online. So we basically just offered more because we saw this appetite for online development. And then the other factor, I think folks had some time on their hands. I mean, if you work at the circulation desk and your library is closed, I mean, you could find something else to do, but you're probably going to have at least a little more time for professional development. So I think we saw a lot of folks, especially early in the pandemic, say, okay, I don't want to just like sit here. I want to do something. And so it was a great time to kind of reinvest in your education. So anyway, the jump is incredible. It was just under 25,000 attendees across all of our events. So yeah, I'm sure if we were keeping track of records, we would have broken it. But these are just a smattering of examples of things that we provided throughout the year. They continue, so please do look at our website and look at the training link. You'll find lots of other professional development opportunities. All right, just checking the time. So I think we're good. So I mentioned the help desk. We answered about 1,700 cases last year. You can contact us really any way except walking in because we're not there. But feel free to contact us if you ever have, even if it's not an issue, but just a question, like, tell me more about Summon, or, I'm not sure my Easy Proxy is the same one that you have. I mean, any of those are just ask us anything. We're happy to help, or suggest things to us that you'd like to see us do. We also offer promotion and marketing. We have a collection called Homegrown, which is a collection of ebooks that are published by North Carolina publishers. And that also increased during COVID. We're seeing a lot of book clubs. We're seeing folks use books from this collection in course reserves. It's really unique in the sense that we own these forever, so they're not going to disappear someday, as some do with subscriptions. But then also, they're unlimited simultaneous access. So if 100 students wanted to stare at a book at the same time, that's perfectly fine. There's no limit, there are no holds or wait lists or anything like that. So on the left, you can see just one of our promotions for some of the titles that are in the Homegrown collection. And those come from lots of publishers, including Duke University Press and UNC Press. So there are academic titles as well as more pleasure reading titles. All right, so this is basically a summary of everything I just talked about in one slide. And so I want to invite you all to help us because we did a little bit of strategic planning at our conference last month, but again, we're still in the thick of it. So it's not too late to tell us what you think. So basically, some of the questions we've been asking libraries, and I'll ask you these right now, of our current services, which we just ran through, we're curious to know, what's working well, what can be improved, what's most important to you. So at this point, feel free, it's a free for all. You can start chatting whatever you want. Like, I like Heritage Quest, or I hate whatever. I mean, just let us know. We'll sort through it all. What are some challenges that you face at your library that NC Live might be able to help you with? So again, don't worry if it's like half of an idea. That's perfectly fine. We're just kind of looking for patterns. Again, all of our ideas come from folks saying, we need help with this. And if 10 people tell us that sort of signals that we better dig into it. What emerging trends would you like NC Live to investigate? So maybe there's just something that you think we need to know more about as a state or as a group, and maybe we could take the lead on it. What role might NC Live play at the state level that would help your library? And then as you consider our mission and the challenges you face, what other areas should we think about focusing on? So again, feel free to chat that. Don't worry about spelling or format. We don't care. We're just looking for ideas. So I'll share with you what came out of the annual conference session. This was back in May. These are our current services, and we basically asked folks to rate them. What should we be focusing on? Sorry, there are a few new things in here as well. It's not all current services. And we said, what's most important to you, and what should our priorities be? And no surprise, everyone said content. That's what 1.6 billion things. Like, don't lose sight of that. And so we won't. We'll keep doing that. But then beyond that, it's kind of almost a neck and neck tie between marketing and promotion, training, fundraising, and technical infrastructure, which I think mostly related to help desk, providing technical support. And then the last couple were engagement and OER. So again, that's kind of what came out of it. But if you have different priorities, by all means, let us know. And I think that's it. So I'm going to let you guys, give you a chance to chat. Let me go back to my questions, which will help you. And then Maura, feel free to jump in if I'm running over. I think I have a few minutes for questions.
No worries. You did have a question come in, and I can moderate that quickly for you. Do you have any thoughts on information on the impact of ProQuest acquisition by Clarivate on NC Live's offerings?
Yeah, that announcement came out a few weeks back. I don't think there's any impact. I mean, I just want to answer the sort of the immediate impact. There's really no immediate impact to us. We're in the midst of a 6-year contract with ProQuest, so nothing for us will change, which means nothing for you would change through NC Live. Long term, it's all speculation. I mean, I don't know. You read the press release and sort of talk to folks, but I think my guess is as good as yours, which I don't really have a great guess about the future. But at least I want to reassure everybody that, again, we're in the midst of a really long contract, so don't worry about it changing for NC Live. It'll be the same, summon and all the resources that you currently receive from us. Yeah, Betty, a good question.
Betty,
if you hear anything,
really love
let me know.
For you to bring back Simply Analytics and also NC Live baseball hats, so that librarians can share the love.
Interesting. All right. Yeah, Simply Analytics was one of the resources we had to not renew last year because of usage. But baseball hats, I've never heard of this before. Like, this must predate me. But I will let I will let one of our folks know to look into it, because we have been buying some new swag. I think we have beach chairs and coolers. So I think baseball hats would fit right into our summer theme. Thank you. All right. Any other questions or comments? And if you think of something like, tomorrow, feel free to reach out. I'll toggle to our contact us page. So these are all the ways to get a hold of us. It's not on here, but my email is rob@nclive.org. Very simple. So if you just want to contact me directly, that's fine. But if you contact our help address, that'll get kind of funneled to the right person.
Well, thank you so much,
Well,
Rob.
it's weird to not. Yeah, it's weird to not see your faces, but hopefully next year, right? Hopefully next year we'll be in person.
I will let the cat out of the bag now. We have had the all clear to go ahead and plan to be in person next year. So we will hope to be all together on one of the CRC campuses. Well, thank you so much for
All
your
right,
update
awesome.
from NC Live. We love having you and look forward to seeing you again soon. And we will head into a break now. Up next on the itinerary is the library directors panel. So your chance to ask questions to the library directors. So we'll see everyone soon. Thank you.